I swear it is like the darkest corner of the internet.
Hey, I'm Dan, and today I'm joined by my wife, Michelle, and we're gonna be talking about why we are leaving Portugal. So about 5 years ago, we published a video on our other channel, Honeymoon Always, with the 10 reasons that we were moving to Portugal. We were going sight unseen just based on all the research we could do during the pandemic. And so today we're gonna tell you why we're leaving and then go through those reasons and see if they match up with what our expectations were with reality, to give you an idea of what it's actually like to live in Portugal versus what you might see on the internet.
And a quick spoiler alert, there were a lot of things we were wrong about. So excited to share those with you. So the main reason that we are leaving Portugal is actually not super juicy. It's because of work. When we moved here, we had a honeymoon travel blog where we helped people plan their honeymoons. And since then, we've really focused in on helping Americans go to the Caribbean, which means that we go to the Caribbean all the time. And getting from Portugal to the Caribbean is an actual nightmare. It takes so long. It's been really painful. We go several times a year. It's just untenable at this point, and we need a change. So for us, we really are looking to move to a place that's easier to get to our main destination for work, which is the Caribbean. So we will be moving to Chicago. Now, we're not actually done with Portugal yet. We still really want the opportunity to stay here longer. And something that made this option of us moving feel a little bit better was the opportunity for us to transition from the D7 visa to the Golden visa, which has much more relaxed rules around how much time you need to be spending in the country, which allows us to travel for work much more often. And also, there are new opportunities within the Golden visa that are available to us that we're really excited about. So if you check out the rest of this YouTube channel, Dan is going to be sharing a lot about the specific fund that we will be using to get the Golden visa. It is aimed specifically at Americans just like us. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, we hope you check those videos out too.
And just to be clear, we have loved our time here. It's not like it was all roses and a paradise the whole entire time, but we learned so much. We had a great time and our brains have just changed. We are new people and we totally recommend this for anyone to take a few years, live abroad, leave the US for a while to get a piece of what we've experienced.
Yeah, this has been unbelievably life-changing and we fully recommend it, but it has been hard. So let's tell you about it.
Now, the first reason that we moved to Portugal was financial. Now, we were both becoming self-employed in the US and it felt a little scary based on the cost of living there. And it was shouted off the rooftops that Portugal was an affordable place to live. And so we thought, oh, maybe we could move to Portugal and it wouldn't be so scary to become self-employed. And so that is what we did. And at the time, it was actually pretty true that you could move to Portugal and save a good amount of money. The reality is things have changed. First is inflation. It has happened everywhere in the world, but it's definitely happened a little more here in Portugal and within Portugal, within Lisbon.
We would meet people who would move with the idea of lower cost of living and realize that it's actually really not quite as low, and you may have equal success and an easier cultural transition if you found a lower cost of living within the US. We found a lot of people who moved for that reason specifically did not stick around for too long, which is totally fine, but that is something that I think I would not say about Portugal anymore.
One specific example is housing. So the cost of housing has gone up, but also if you compare apples to apples, like you take a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere in the US and compare it to a 2-bedroom apartment in Portugal, you're getting two completely different products. In Portugal, you may or may not have AC. So that average cost, some of those apartments don't have AC. When it comes to insulation, some apartments you're gonna hear your neighbor cough, where, you know, that does happen in the US, but in Portugal, it's like a ton of the buildings, even like new builds can have thin walls. So when you're comparing the cost of living and looking at housing or other factors, it's just really hard to compare them and know exactly what you're gonna get for the cost that you're gonna pay. So if you're moving from New York or like San Francisco, yes, there's gonna be a cost savings, but it may not be as big as you expect it to be. And, you know, inflation continues and we don't know where it's gonna go from here.
A thing that I think can't be articulated very easily over the internet, or maybe expectations for us weren't set this way, is that we really thought we were down for the European apartment experience. So our first apartment had really beautiful Portuguese tile and it was older and it had this like creaky old elevator. We just felt like, oh, this is amazing. We're living our European dreams. The reality is it actually long-term was not comfortable for us. There were a lot of things we weren't expecting that made it less comfortable. And it turns out in order to have what we would consider to be more similar to a home that we would live in more like in the US, that's gonna be more expensive. So if you are much more chill than us, you might be able to get away with a less expensive apartment, but to get the things that come maybe more standard for an American style of living, those are going to be more expensive. The second reason we moved is for healthcare. In the US, I had just left my job and I was the one who was bringing in the healthcare with my job. So that was really scary for us in the US. And moving to Portugal, where healthcare has been subsidized by the government and it's much less expensive, has been a huge relief. It has been amazing.
I've cringed at the thought of dealing with the American healthcare system again, just because of the costs and the complications with insurance. I will miss being able to grab an appointment really quick and affordably anytime I need it with the private healthcare system here. But I do want to tamper your expectations just a little bit because we have learned how much culture plays into medical care. Even if you're speaking the same language, you may not get the level of understanding or the confidence in the level of understanding when you're getting treatment. So as an example, I just went to the doctor. We talked about my symptoms and he kind of brushed it off at first and was like, oh, it seems pretty mild that you won't need anything. And then I said, oh, but what about this? And he said, oh, well, let's do surgery then. And so it's just kind of like a quick thing as opposed to a more consultative situation where you get in the US and you talk to your doctor about the different options that you have. And I don't know if that's just the language or if it's cultural or what it is, but we do feel a cultural difference impacting healthcare.
Similarly, Portugal is a bit more traditional in the way that they view gender and women. And so getting treatment for things that involve being a woman can be a lot different. It's something just to navigate and understand. And similar to what Dan was saying, I have had experiences where I need a procedure to be done and a practitioner only does one type of surgery or procedure, and they don't even think to mention that there are other options. So it was a learning curve for me to recognize that I don't have just the one option that they're presenting me, and it's on me to do a bit more homework to understand, oh, I actually could do it this way or this way. There's a cultural difference in the way that they, I think, communicate healthcare options.
So don't be confused. Portugal has better healthcare. It is extremely accessible and we have loved it. But there's some things, just some little things that we'll appreciate when we go back to the US.
Yeah.
Next was the climate and geography. We were looking for a temperate climate and a beach and a beautiful place to live. And we were right with that. It is wonderful. Just a small thing that I miss are winters because here it just gets damp and cold and I want some snow. And we go to like France for that or Switzerland for that. Yeah. So that's great. But yeah, pretty much right on with that. Yeah. It's a beautiful place to live.
Yeah. One thing that surprised us is that Lisbon specifically is very hilly and we walk everywhere, which we absolutely love. That has been one of my favorite things about living in Lisbon, not needing a car. But no matter what temperature it is, you're never dressed correctly because it's always going to get warm when you're huffing and puffing and hiking up a hill. So the fourth reason we moved is for travel opportunities. And this was really in the midst of COVID lockdown. So we were really eager to travel. And I have to be honest, I think we over-indexed on
overdid it. We're tired.
Every year, for like the last 2 or 3 years, our New Year's resolution has been to travel less. And we haven't been able to slow down. It is our business. We also love doing it. And one of our favorite things is when our friends here will say, oh, hey, I'm going to Lyon, France. Do you guys want to come? And we're like, yes. So even if we think we're going to slow down, we have not yet. And that has become a problem. It is actually a reason we are moving. We are liking to travel less, but specifically because we do have to go to the Caribbean a lot for work. And that is exhausting.
I'm definitely going to miss the quick trips to France.
For sure.
To Italy. I'm going to miss that so much.
Yeah.
The next reason was the ease of getting a visa. And at the time, it was true. This was before you needed a lease to get the visa. And so right now, people are paying for an apartment for like 6 months because they have to have that lease in order to apply for the visa. And some of the offices that process the visas have gotten even more strict in other ways, like with your bank account and things like that. So I don't know how much this is true anymore. For us, it was easy to get the visa. And then the other thing is maintaining your residency is a challenge because the office that deals with residency is a total mess.
It's really every conversation we hear with anyone who's dealing with any sort of visa residency situation, everyone is having a hard time with it. It's very stressful. We are lucky in that it's not as high of stakes for us, but for some people it is very high stakes and it adds a level of stress for everybody that we know. It is our hope that as we transition over to the golden visa that we'll be a little bit more shielded from the waves of what's happening. There's a lot of changes within the government of Portugal. I know it doesn't make the news quite as much as other governments, but it just is in a pretty unstable place right now, especially as foreigners. So we are hoping that the golden visa feels a little bit softer and less stressful.
Yeah. Overall, still a fairly easy visa to get, but definitely not as easy as it was when we came.
Yeah. Reason number 6 was safety. And we noted that Portugal is one of the safest countries in the world. And at the time, I didn't even look, but at the time, America was like 122nd or whatever. And I imagine that the Delta has become even greater at this point. And that's still true. I have felt so safe. I, as a woman, have gone out for walks very late at night by myself. I mean, be smart still, but it's been very great. The 7th reason we chose Portugal is for community. I think we did find that here. We have a really, really good group of friends that we have intentionally curated, and we've gotten really, really skilled at being better at taking an active participation in building community. Part of that is just big life change. You have to be intentional about building community. So 100% that has happened. Where I think we had misset expectations is we really hoped to integrate more within the local community. And there's a couple reasons that I think that we weren't as successful at that. Number one, our lifestyle just is different. We are much more transient. You know, we are working from home, from a coffee shop, whatever, on a Tuesday, and people have 9-to-5s and families and things like that. So our community is mostly built of other expats or immigrants. It's been fabulous, but I think we had hoped to integrate more within the local community. And just on that, I will also note that online, there's been a marked change of attitudes from locals towards us, Americans, anyone who talks about moving to Portugal. When we first moved, of course, there were some people who had negative things to say, but for the most part, we were met with such warmth and openness, and we hope you really love our country. And now, I swear, it is like the darkest corner of the internet. I think this is happening globally. This is not specific to Portugal, but it has definitely escalated within Portugal, and it's changed my opinion of the experience here.
There was even a study that said that Portuguese were like the most friendly people in the world. And maybe it was true then, but I mean, I don't think so. I think if you come here as a tourist, you might leave thinking that. But when you live here, there is definitely a surface level of friendliness, but getting to become friends with locals is just not a reality. I can only think of one person that moved here as an English speaker and was able to really get a community with locals. Other than that, none. And a lot of them say that they want to, just like we wanted to. And when we got here, there was a curiosity, like, why are you moving here? And I think maybe we could have tried harder at the beginning, but today it's just not happening. They look at us, once they learn that we're Americans, they don't want anything to do with us. And that is just kind of the vibe that we feel here.
There is a like surface level kindness. I'm not saying people are people are not mostly rude to us, but we had hoped to really build friendship and community, and I don't think we were successful at that.
The other aspect is the digital nomads. So I don't consider myself a digital nomad. We were here for almost 5 years. There's people that come and they say they live here, and then you find out they are living here for 3 months or 6 months, and then it's like kind of disappointing because you know that relationship isn't going to build up into your community.
And I think we look the same as those people, so it's easy to understand why people would not have interest in rooting relationships with people who are very likely to leave, as frankly we are about to. So the 8th reason we wanted to move is for the lifestyle. We really were looking to slow down, readjust our work-life balance and our relationship to work. And I think that was 100% a success. I can't believe how much I've changed, we've changed. My ideas around productivity and my relationship to making money and all sorts of things have changed just by seeing other people live a life that is much more balanced. So 10 out of 10, that has been fabulous.
Yeah, we went from both of us having a 9-to-5, a side hustle in the States, and here, you know, we both have our jobs, but we're very fluid with what that means for us and how much we're working versus not and how that all works out for us. So really great on the lifestyle change, and we're going to carry that with us wherever we want. Now, one thing we've mentioned in the video is the bureaucracy. We thought, oh, part of this lifestyle is dealing with the bureaucracy and being laid back and not stressing about things. And that's impossible for us. We cannot get over the bureaucracy, and we are not the only one.
Well, we thought if we just had enough patience that we could accomplish the things we need to accomplish. And that is simply not true.
Yeah.
It is not just that things are slow or just that things are disorganized or just that if you meet the wrong person on the wrong day that they might dislike what you've brought in and you'll have to go back and do the whole thing. There are some tasks that I believe are fully broken and there's not anything you can do about it. There's no amount of patience in the world that's going to solve that problem. So we find that people who are successful here are people who don't need to get a lot of stuff done if you're dealing a lot with bureaucracy like we as immigrants have been. So people who are retired do much better, but if you are constantly trying to to solve bureaucratic problems and run into friction, and it's a new flavor of friction at every corner. It's really grating and in some cases impossible.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to renew my driver's license even though I followed their process to the T. Michelle and I have gone into the immigration office to get something done with the same exact paperwork, same form of payment, and I'll be successful and then have to go help Michelle do the exact same thing because there's friction there. It's just like, it's a struggle with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The next thing is the language. Now, I speak Portuguese. I was excited to come here and practice and get better at my Portuguese. And Michelle was happy with learning Portuguese as well. But we got here and I learned very quickly that is very hard to do, because even though I speak Portuguese, I still need to practice. And I speak Brazilian Portuguese, and so I wanted to change to speak more of the local accent. But they won't practice with me because, you see this face and they think, oh, he doesn't speak Portuguese. And then I speak my first couple words and they think, oh, he's got an accent. And then they go to English, and it is very hard to practice Portuguese here. So it is very hard to learn Portuguese, and the payoff just isn't there because so many people speak English. And even if you do speak Portuguese, it really doesn't ease the situation very much. The only time it comes in handy really is when I'm speaking to like service providers, like the phone company. If you live outside of the big cities, I'm sure this is different. But yeah, learning Portuguese is hard and I just don't see the payoff. And it really just hasn't helped me as much as I thought it would.
I took a really fabulous Portuguese class that got me certified with the government level requirement of Portuguese in order to apply for citizenship. So if you need that recommendation, let me know. But Dan is right. It is very hard to practice. And I've seen firsthand that there are so many problems that it cannot solve. And even with how many people speak English, which is impressive and lovely, and I'm always so grateful that that's the case, there just is a communication barrier a lot of times. And it took me, I think, probably 3 years into living here to realize how important the upper level of nuance is of speaking any language. And it's going to take me so long to achieve that with Portuguese, especially with as little practice as we get. And that little area of English can be really painful, especially in medical situations or in building relationships with people. So while we can for sure get around and do everything that we need to do, for the most part, there is difficulty with that upper level of fluency.
Yeah. The good news is that the language requirement that is needed to apply for citizenship can be done by taking the course that Michelle did. And it's not even, there's not even a test at the end. So that's really good. And I just feel so proud of my friends when I know they've learned Portuguese and they're navigating the day-to-day interactions, but it still doesn't give you a huge leg up if you do speak Portuguese.
So the last reason we listed is we wanted to spend more time with family. Now, this was more indicative of us wanting to be self-employed and not tied to our 9-to-5 PTO schedule as it was in the United States, and we didn't get to spend that much time with family. And this has been a huge success. We've met up with family members and friends around the world. Some have come to visit us. We get to go visit them. That has been incredible. And I think also part of building our community of people that we love that live all over. Like we have good friends who said, hey, we're going to be in Boston at this time. Is there any chance you can meet us there? And we were like, okay. So we just met up with our friends in Boston. We went to Salem, Massachusetts for Halloween, which was such a vibe. So things like that are such a delight to me. But that is more indicative, I think, of us becoming self-employed and not tied to having 9-to-5 jobs with PTO.
Now, another thing we mentioned in the video that was kind of funny is we said we thought this was going to be a 2 to 5 year experience that we would move here. And we weren't even really thinking about citizenship. It was in the back of our mind of like, if this works out, we could stick around for citizenship. But within about 6 months, we thought, yeah, we want to stick around for citizenship. This is great. So we're leaving before we are eligible. And the laws are currently looking like they're going to change. So we won't be eligible for a while. So that is where the golden visa investigation started. And we realized, okay, even if the laws change, we can still get a golden visa and still get citizenship down the road so that it will be available to us to come back, travel around Europe as much as we want, not worry about the 90-day limits that you have with the US visa and, all the other benefits that could come with citizenship eventually. So if you're interested in that, videos to come on getting a golden visa. And if you want more videos like this, if you want us to talk about leaving or anything else, just feel free to comment down below and I'll be there in the comments and we could even make follow-up videos if it makes sense.
So I hope you like Dan's channel, subscribe for more. And if you are more interested in kind of the day-to-day of what's going on with us, you can follow along with us on our business account. We are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Honeymoon Always. We hope this has been helpful and informative, and we will talk to you later. Bye.